Time now to catch up with the latest business news. Charles Pellegrin joins us in studio for that with trade talks, Charles, between the US and China wrapping up in Sweden.
That's right, Eve. Delegations from both countries concluded 2 days of talks in Stockholm and described the exchanges as constructive, agreeing to continue working towards extending a 90-day tariff truce, which will hit an August 12th deadline. China's trade negotiator said both sides agreed to that extension, which temporarily suspends some of the trade and export restrictions they place on each other. At one point, tariff rates had hit the triple digits, which in effect would have completely stopped trade between the world's two biggest economies. Well, the U.S. side wasn't as definitive when they spoke to media. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said an extension would be up to Donald Trump, who will be briefed on the talks this Wednesday.
Of course, those talks just one of many trade negotiations currently underway with the United States.
We're still waiting for deals to be concluded ahead of an August 1st deadline imposed by Donald Trump after agreements reached with the European Union and Japan over the last week or so. We're still waiting to hear from ongoing negotiations with South Korea and India. For instance, these talks and the subsequent easing of threatened tariff rates has moved the needle a bit on economic growth projections for this year. The International Monetary Fund in its latest World Outlook report saying that global growth will be stronger than previously expected, going from 2.8% to 3% this year. In the U.S., the forecast has been raised by 0.1%, while China will see a 4.8% growth this year instead of 4%. The IMF did add, though, that U.S. policies remain, quote, highly uncertain and that risks to growth remain firmly on the downside.
Already, though, Charles, even the threat of these tariffs has caused quite a lot of economic harm in many places.
Especially in export-oriented economies like the African nation of Lesotho and its bustling clothing factories threatened by Donald Trump's 50% tariffs announced back in April. Those tariffs now on pause. Lesotho and many other African countries waiting to see how heavily their goods will be taxed in the U.S. when that pause expires on August 1st. But already the uncertainty has taken a massive bite out of Lesotho's textile industry, as Brian Quinn reports.
A vast clothing factory silent, its long rows of sewing machines idled. This is the state of Lesotho's once bustling textiles industry. Its former workers suffering as their livelihoods disappear.
Life has been difficult ever since I was laid off from my job. My husband is also struggling to find work.
A mountainous kingdom roughly the size of Belgium set within South Africa, Lesotho's relative obscurity on the global stage earned it mockery from Donald Trump at his first State of the Union address.
In the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of.
The president, though, did remember it in his so-called reciprocal tariffs announced in April, targeting Lesotho with 50% import taxes, the highest rate of any country on his list. Those tariffs were quickly put on pause, but 10% global tariffs remain. Since 2000, Lesotho had enjoyed duty-free exports to the U.S. under the African Growth and Opportunities Act, or AGOA, aimed at reducing poverty on the continent via trade links instead of aid packages. The law made it possible for Lesotho's textile industry to boom. Until recently, the sector accounted for 90% of manufacturing exports and 40,000 jobs. Lesotho factories have even produced Trump-branded sportswear. Officials say new tariffs will only make it harder for them to reduce the country's trade imbalance with the U.S.
They are inevitably going to make it difficult for us to get foreign exchange that we can use to buy more stuff from the U.S.
Trump, too, says his policy towards Africa will be trade, not aid, but African leaders are skeptical. The AGOA is set to expire in September, with no indication that it will be renewed.
And on the back of all that, Charles, how are the markets looking this hour?
Well, the Asia-Pacific market's trading mixed after those U.S.-China trade talks in Sweden, the lack of a truce extension. Howard Lutnick, the U.S. Commerce Secretary, also adding that the August 1st deadline for many countries, including India and South Korea, won't be delayed further. In Europe, at the open, we're seeing stocks trading lower. Investors there digesting the earnings reports of major companies released this Wednesday. France, meanwhile, posting 0.3% growth in the second quarter, underlining the economy is resisting well to U.S. tariff pressure, at least according to Finance Minister Eric Lombard.
Let's end then, Charles, in Australia, where the country's pioneering social media ban will include YouTube now as well.
The video sharing website owned by Google will in the end be included in the ban for children under 16. The government there ditching a previous exemption for YouTube. The new rules will come into effect in December. Will also affect TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, X, and Snapchat. Children under 16 will still be able to view YouTube videos, but will not be permitted to have an account, thereby stopping them from uploading content or from interacting on the platform. Take a listen to Australia's Communications Minister.
We are implementing these rules and this law on behalf of parents who want and deserve better protections for their kids online. We want kids to know who they are before platforms assume who they are, which is why I want to be clear about YouTube. The evidence cannot be ignored that 4 out of 10 Australian kids report that their most recent harm was on YouTube.
That ban coming into effect in December.
Indeed. Charles, thanks a lot for that business update. Well, that just